Welcome to the Solid Verbal. The Solid Verbal.
Come after me! I'm a man! I'm 40!
I've heard so many players say, well, I want to be happy. You want to be happy for a day? Eat a steak.
It's that woo-woo!
And now, Dan and Ty.
Welcome back to the Solid Verbal, boys and girls. Ty Hildebrandt here. Dan Rubenstein over there. solidverbal@gmail.com is the email address. Don't forget, you can find us on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, on the interwebs, just as an entity at solidverbal.com. We are also on Apple Podcasts and Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, Dan.
Yeah, we are available on Spotify. So if you're listening to music, you can have your podcast right there too. No problem.
How you feeling, brother?
I'm feeling pretty good, Ty. Surprisingly, for staying up far past my bedtime for an overtime, exciting, excellent national championship game and waking up pretty early, especially, I think my wife had an early meeting on top of everything. I feel good, though I have to tell you something that is going to sound harsh.
Oh.
But we're all about honesty.
Sure.
We're all about being
honesty,
upfront. You don't sound great physically right now.
I left it all on the field, Dan.
If you continue to deteriorate and it affects your performance, about halfway through this show, I've got a younger Hawaiian co-host. He's left-handed. He's ready to go and really pick up the slack. He's got a deep voice, if you see what I did there.
Yeah.
And I've come to calling him Taya Tagovailoa.
Wow.
So I'm ready to pull that trigger should the need arise.
Well, you
I
might
just wanted
have
to let you
I'm
know
gonna
now.
do my best to make it through here.
Okay.
Because we got one more game to talk about.
Yeah.
Dan and I are both home from our trip, our exploits, our journey to Atlanta. Had a great time down there. Hopefully, folks had a chance to check out all the cool stuff we did on Facebook. And the live show was awesome. Incredible. That's going to be posted next Wednesday in place of our normal weekly show. We promised to put the audio up for that. I went through it yesterday and, just so much fun. We had special guests come up and talk about what went on in the world of college football. So really good to get out, meet people that support the show, and do it at the site of the national championship, no less, which made it a little bit more special.
I love the fact that our listeners are just as weird and fun as we try to be. It was a complete fun experience. Can't wait to do it again. And I also love the fact that we had a great game to talk about. That even with all the bitching and moaning that, and I think to a certain degree we did a little bit, that we were a little disappointed that quarterback play going into the game wasn't as sexy as perhaps previous national championships, but that we just had a full-on great football game to watch.
What an incredible way to close out the college football season. Really, truly, the thrill of victory, the agony of defeat. For our purposes here, the ultimate backup better than the starter moment, with Tua Tagovailoa getting the second half start for Alabama, leading the Tide to a championship in overtime. You couldn't have scripted it any better yourself, Dan. The game really had, I think, a little bit of everything. You had the youth movement, missed opportunities, some questionable calls and non-calls, which maybe we could talk about. And of course, most importantly, because not only are we an honest show, but we're also a very self-aware show, we saw a particular solid verbal bump for guys that we interviewed during our Facebook Live stint.
McCall Hardman, Levi Wallace with a huge third down stop.
Anthony Averett had a nice sack at one point.
Anthony Averett, both Christian Miller and Jamie Mosley in on the action a ton. It was a good day for the solid verbal bump in both directions. And you mentioned, is the backup better than the starter, which is like the obvious thing. But full on in this game, it was, is the former walk-on better than the scholarship corner for Alabama? Or is he just more of a factor? Levi Wallace was fantastic. You have, is the student better than the teacher? Kirby Smart. You had, is the little brother more impactful than the big brother with Riley Ridley and Calvin Ridley? So there were so many different, here's my hot question of the moment, and it actually paid off to just an incredibly entertaining watch from start to finish for somebody who wasn't rooting for either team. I apologize, Georgia fans, and we will get to how to deal with losing in a national championship game in a heartbreaking way. Nobody is more experienced than myself and Oregon fans everywhere over the last few years than what this feeling feels like.
So here's what we're going to do.
Here we are.
Took calls on the Reverb line. We got text messages. I was messaging with people till about 1 a.m. I'm not kidding.
All right.
We were talking about Tua time and, all sorts of... I was talking movies, Christopher Nolan movies with One Verballer.
No dong shots came in, correct?
No dong shots, thankfully.
Oh,
no.
That's the win right there.
Very, very fun to interact with folks. Here were your college football playoff national championship reverbs. Have a listen.
Damn. Ty, for the final time, I must know. Do you believe that you can win this fight tonight?
Ty and Dan, this is Luke calling from Uriah, Alabama.
Hey, this is Graham in Atlanta.
Hey, this is Monty in Cleveland.
Craig, South Bend, Indiana.
This is Jonathan from Alabama. Getting ready for my 2018 National Crock Potting. And that bulldog meat is going to be nice and tender.
It's Bama, Georgia. It's the SEC. Points just mean more. 3-0. I might have just sealed it for the dogs.
Jalen Hurts is really not that good of a quarterback. And I should know. I'm a Maryland Terrapins fan.
I think I have to personally blame Kendrick Lamar for the letdown that was this Alabama comeback. I believe that hope was gone, and then somehow Kendrick Lamar breathed it back into existence for the Tide.
Honey, it's halftime and this meat's still cold.
Ah, crap. I forgot to plug in the crock pot. Yeah, it'll be done right after regulation.
Oh my God, he no-scoped that throw.
What's the over-under for number of footballers demanding Tua get a dude alert? Because I'm going to take the over.
Georgia, I am so sorry for you guys. I'm so sorry.
13-0 at half and up 3 points with a second and 26 in overtime. Somehow Georgia managed to out-Georgia themselves. Congratulations, Alabama.
I just watched my Crimson Tide come back from 13 down to the true freshman backup. And all I have to say is the argument is settled. The best barbecue is Hawaiian barbecue. Roll Tide.
What an unsatisfying ending to a national championship game when you're a War Eagle fan.
All things considered, that's about as good as it could have gone. I get to make Alabama kicker jokes forever and give Georgia fans crap forever. Perfect. War Eagle.
I am walking home at about 12:50 at night, and naturally, the streets are completely asleep because no one in New York cares about college football. But I am wide awake because that was one of the most amazing games I've ever seen in my life.
Alabama won again. I'm currently deleting all major forms of social media. See you next year.
And I think Bama took a different approach to this game. Instead of a crock potting or a microwaving, I think they wanted a panini because at one point they just put the sandwich in and they finished it.
Go Dogs, and we'll see you next season for the exact same thing.
Hi, it's Anthony from Australia, and all I've got to say is, Roll Tide, baby!
I'm out here in the country, and I declare I can't hear any of those folks that said Alabama should not have been in the playoffs. Roll Tide, roll!
There you go, Dan.
Yeah.
Big thanks to our friend Taylor, our trusted deputy Taylor, who woke up early this morning to put those together on our behalf. He was adamant about putting one more together. He said, there's one more big game. Make sure you tell folks that the line is open. And as you can hear, we got a bunch of excitable calls. So thank you again for calling 408-VERBAL-1. The reverb line for now is effectively closed. Thank you for your participation. It always makes the game more fun.
We'll open it up during the Iowa State spring game broadcast.
Sure, right.
That's where we will be selective in getting your feedback.
So, okay, Alabama 26, Georgia 23 in overtime. Let's just talk through this, Dan. Let's see. Yeah. Let's take the temperature. I felt from the jump that it might not be the best night for Jalen Hurts because you'll remember the way the game started. Bama picks off Jake Fromm opening drive.
Yep.
Alabama gets good field position. They get some tempo. Hurts has Calvin Ridley wide open, streaking to the end zone, and he can't connect.
Right. Overthrows him a little bit, yeah.
And that was kind of his story in the first half. He was 3 of 8, only 21 yards. I don't know if he was any better or worse than he's been all year, but he just didn't give him any spark, and there were a couple missed opportunities that he left out there.
Yeah, I mean, he was mostly succeeding with his legs, and they turned that opening pick into, I believe that was the badly missed field goal, which I guess bookended the game, the regulation for Alabama. And then it was 3 out of the next 4 drives were 3 and outs. It was ugly. It was arrhythmic. It was uninspired and didn't seem to be fully cohesive in terms of what Alabama was trying to do. It was a lot of sort of Jalen Hurts right, Jalen Hurts left, Jalen Hurts counter, whatever, and which is fine. It takes advantage of an extremely talented runner. But in terms of getting him comfortable as a thrower with completable passes early, something that Chris Brown talked about on our scheme preview show, just in general, how quarterbacks get going in these huge games to get nerves out, it didn't seem like Brian Daboll and the offensive coaching staff fully put Alabama in a great position. And on the flip side, Ty, and I'm sure you have thoughts about this, Georgia went over the top to try to get Jake Fromm comfortable, so much so that, and I know there were RPOs, so he had the option, the ability to hand it off to whoever, Chubb or Sony Michel or DeAndre Swift, but they started out with 7 straight pass attempts, one of which was, or the first of which was, first or second, that was picked off, a bad throw down the left sideline. So it was interesting to see how the different coaching staffs went into this game in terms of how do we get this offense in a rhythm philosophically. It was interesting.
I texted you, 3/4 of the way through the first half?
Yeah.
I was fading fast.
You were. It was tough to watch. The fact that neither one of these offenses was, we had a couple, early field goals from Georgia. They drive down the field, one of which was pretty methodical. I think it was 13 or 14 drives. And that's great. Get points on the board. It's not a game that you should be worried about kicking field goals instead of getting 6 just because the defenses are so good. I don't think, either one of these teams expected a shootout that they had to take chances early on. But certainly there were plays left on the field. There were overthrows. There were just lapses in focus, it seemed.
Georgia offensively didn't exactly light the world on fire in the first half. But to your point, they went over the top to try and get Fromm comfortable. And they definitely had control of the game. They definitely dictated the terms of the game, which I thought was a big deal for them. Fromm as a whole, if you look at his box score, the numbers aren't outstanding. But I'm telling you, he looked outstanding for a good chunk of that football game. What was he, 16 of 32? That's not indicative of the kind of game he had, especially in the first half, where he was making a bunch of big throws, was very poised in the pocket. He had the bad interception to start. He had the goofy interception in the second half, which bounced off a guy's head. But, I just hope that the ink didn't dry on Justin Fields' letter of intent yet. Because if Fromm continues to play the way we saw in the first half, and if he continues to improve over the course of his college career, there's not going to be room for anybody else. He was outstanding in this game.
Yeah, no, he will be the starter for 2 more years, barring injury or some sort of significant yip situation. And also, and to your point, it helps the fact that Alabama's offense was off the field so quickly, and Jake Fromm was able to get comfortable in the first half. And the fact that, honestly, the Georgia defense was inspiring enough, given the fact that they had to cover, 12 yards of field?
Yeah.
What was the threat with Jalen Hurts at all times? And listen, it's been amazing watching Jalen Hurts, the best version of Jalen Hurts these past couple years. But early on, you mentioned the missed throw early to the corner of the end zone. I was flipping to the coach's feed, the film room on whatever it was, ESPN News during commercial breaks, and they kept rewinding. There was a post pattern in the red zone where Jalen Hurts was protected. He could have stepped in and hit Ridley in the rhythm that he should have, and just didn't have that. And if nothing else, if there are criticisms, a valid criticism of Tua Tagovailoa, which we'll get to in the second half, much more of a rhythm thrower, much more confident in his abilities to the detriment of some throws, a little too confident perhaps.
Yeah.
But that was ultimately the spark that he had, that Jalen Hurts, at least for the past, month or so, that flame just sort of went out, hopefully just temporarily.
I tried to watch the coach's feed. I enjoyed it so much during the Rose Bowl.
Yeah.
It was like a wall of sound, just an amorphous blob of sound, at least through, I'd say, a quarter and a half of the coach's feed. They were all talking at the same time. Down the stretch, it got a lot better. Mm-hmm. And you got some individual analysis from Kevin Sumlin and Mike Gundy, and David Cutcliffe was putting on a virtual clinic. But at least in the early part of that, I was a little bit underwhelmed because you couldn't really decipher what was going on.
Yeah, and 7 people on TV is just a lot. The 6 coaches and who was it? It was Tom Luginbill doing the sort of not narration, but he was the air traffic controller of sorts. Yeah, I thought that was fun. I thought it was good, and it was cool. Gundy and Cutcliffe, I thought, stood out to me as just being interesting voices in the room. Sumlin had some thoughts, obviously playing Alabama as much as he had, but at least going into the half, it just seemed. And what was the score at halftime? 13-0.
Yeah, 13.
It was 13-0. That if there was any one specific thing that Georgia succeeded in doing more than anything, it was doing what Alabama does to teams. I tweeted this out from the Solid Verbal account, and that is getting Alabama out of its comfort zone. And you can win out of your comfort zone, but Alabama's MO is always just to step on your neck until you start doing things that are uncharacteristic for how you usually succeed. And that's what Georgia, in going up 13-0, and they were really good on third downs over and over, and third and a lot. They were,
Sony Michel.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Just a ridiculous talent tiptoeing down the sideline. It was 3rd and 10, it was 3rd and 11, it was 3rd and 20, whatever the case, that they just kept extending drives. And I thought the play calling from Jim Chaney, especially in the first half, was exceptional. And ultimately, the fact that Alabama had to play frenetically, which we're going to get to right now, that was insane to watch because we're not used to that. We've seen it at moments against teams like Ole Miss when it gets to a shootout, or Texas A&M these past few years. But really, those Alabama teams were prepared to play like this.
Yeah.
Whereas going to a backup quarterback because nothing was working in the first half sort of indicated to everybody that Alabama needs something. They need. It's like when you go to goal line defense the whole time playing NCAA because you keep getting run on. You get out of what actually should work.
Well, Georgia led 13-0 at half. And long before that, you and I were texting and wondering if or when it was going to be 2 a time.
Yeah.
I was texting with people on the Reverb line. I was telling them, I'm like, it's coming. You said it on the preview show. And just like that, Nick Saban, you all remember that crazy bastard, he yanks his starter. His starter, mind you, with a career record of 25-2 in the second half of the national freaking championship game in favor of a true freshman from Hawaii by the name of Tua Tagovailoa. And Dan.
Yeah.
That's when we started to see the tide turn.
Oh, Ty. I appreciate what you just did there because you are very much on brand for yourself. Jalen Hurts has exclusively led Alabama to national championship games.
Yeah.
He has done nothing else for Alabama but lead them. And I say that as not saying he's done nothing else, but he has never led them to a lesser situation, which is incredible to see. But at the same time, the stones it takes to not just bring in Tua to see if he can provide a spark and then go back to Jalen Hurts, who sort of has calmed down now that he sees the game from a different perspective. No, the second half was Tua's, even with bad picks, even with, sort of looking uncomfortable. When he scrambled out of that sure sack to extend the play and extend the drive, that was incredible. That was something special that I did not see coming because Tua's just not, he's athletic and ridiculous, but he is not the athlete that Jalen Hurts very clearly is. And for him to make that kind of play, and they were running to a left, to a right, and he ultimately led them in carries by a pretty wide margin. But the fact that they were able to come out in the second half with that sort of confidence and say, game is yours.
Yeah.
We are being shut out. Give us something. And he very quickly did. Incredible.
There was about a 90-minute window last night where Twitter's servers were being powered exclusively by bad Tua takes. Like Jack Dorsey was over there just shoveling them in like a coal engine. Was it a desperation move by Saban, or was it just the only move that he had? Because I go back and forth on it. You can't look at what he did, pulling a guy with the credentials of Jalen Hurts, and say that it didn't reek a little bit of desperation. A little bit of trying to set a new spark. I get that. But on some level, you have to have confidence. Nick Saban has done this time and time again. He's the best coach in college football for a reason. If he made the move, it was not just him grasping at straws. He saw something that he thought could give them an advantage, and lo and behold, Tua comes in, he leads them to victory.
Yeah, and it's not a cold Tua. He threw about 80 passes this year, and most of the time, or all of the time, they were up double digits in those moments. But this is somebody who has seen the field against good defenses trying to attack a true freshman quarterback, albeit for the most part unsuccessfully. He ran it about 30 times during the season. So there is warmth to Tua's muscles, his football muscles. That sounds very weird now that I hear myself say it out loud. No, but there is, there is experience, and he is a bit seasoned. So I think there was confidence. Obviously, the way he must have been performing in practice gave Alabama and Nick Saban and Brian Dable the confidence to roll him out in the second half, because with the way Georgia's defense was playing, notably up front, not giving Alabama anything on the ground. Roquan Smith was incredible, whistle to whistle. They couldn't hang with, let alone beat Georgia without any sort of downfield passing threat to open anything up. And it wasn't desperation. It was the only thing.
Yeah.
To me.
Well, he came in and he instantly gave them more of a vertical threat.
Yeah.
And that, you're right, that is what started to open things up. You started to get the sense midway through the third quarter that things were getting a little weird out there. Tua comes in, throws a touchdown pass to Henry Ruggs to make it 13-7. Jake Fromm answers with an awesome 80-yarder to our boy, Mecole Hardman, who had a huge game, touchdown on the ground and through the air.
Yes.
Just like that, Georgia's back up by 2 scores, 20-7. Ensuing drive, Tua comes in, forces a lollipop into quadruple coverage, some sort of miscommunication, but Georgia gets it back. And again, ensuing possession, Jake Fromm doinks a pass off Deshaun Hand's helmet right into the willing, waiting, comforting arms of Raekwon Davis, which gives Bama the ball back. They march down the field. They get a field goal to make it 20-10. Even in that moment, Georgia's defense was still pretty stout. This is an excellent defense. How many times have we seen it when Alabama gets a big play from its defensive line, from its defense, they get a turnover, they instantly use that to begin the crock-potting, if you will. Georgia's defense was such that they were not going to allow that to happen. They were not going to allow Alabama to ride any kind of heater. And I thought a really strong testament to what they're doing down there.
And it should also be noted that there were a couple of calls early on in the third quarter.
Yes. Let's talk about those.
That were not wonderful. Now, I will not go, and I very seldom do, especially when a team is up, 20-7 at a certain point, and an offense has repeated opportunities to extend the lead and doesn't. But the fact of the matter is, that jump on the block punt.
Yeah, that wasn't offsides, Dan.
It seemed, in the moment, it seemed it because he jumped before the ball was snapped, but didn't actually get into the neutral zone, didn't cross the line of scrimmage. It was just a accidental great jump. Who's to say? I don't know if he was really honed in on focused on the long snapper, but that would have given Georgia the ball in the red zone.
Yeah.
So it seems at the very least that gives them 3 more. And also there was the non-clear face mask on third down that forced Georgia to punt, and I think it set up 4th and 13 or 14. Those were bad calls. Those shifted rhythm in that moment.
I could deal with missing a face mask or a personal foul, or even that pass interference towards the end on Malcolm Parrish, which was questionable. Right. I could deal with that. But you can't mess up false starts and offsides, man. You can't. I mean, it was a false start on that touchdown that Bama scored on 4th down, the one that tied the game. That was a false start on the receiver on the bottom. They didn't call it either. And I'm like you, I don't go so far as to say that Georgia would have won if these calls had gone their way.
Right.
Because clearly there was a lot more at play here. But Georgia definitely got the short end of that stick in this football game.
Yeah. I think Alabama won the game fair and square, outright, in that they took advantage of opportunities and that referees are humans, and that Georgia, again, had opportunities. They, I think, were scoreless for the last quarter and a half, correct?
Yeah.
So, yes, Georgia, on those specific calls and in those specific moments, screwed. They were. It's not going to sit well. It's not going to sit well for a long time, just in the way that I still make jokes about Michael Dyer being down.
Yeah.
Nothing I can do by making those jokes over and over again. But, it's going to sting for a while. The fact is, though, and I'm not going to ask you to play the music, at least not yet, Ty, but the final, the second half drive chart of Georgia is not pretty.
Dramatic, yeah.
It's, after it was, it's after the initial punt and they score on the long Mecole Hardman catch, which was just a superb throw from Jake Fromm. It was the sort of tipped interception off ahead to I think it was Raekwon Davis. But it's 4 straight punts to end the game for Georgia. to drive down the field. And I know they started really sort of backed up most of the time, but they had the opportunities to put the game away, and they did not.
The score was 20-10 at the end of the third quarter, which brought us to the fourth. If you're like us, if you follow along on Twitter, the indomitable Chris Felica from Game Day tweeted out that 3 of the last 4 national champions had actually trailed going into the fourth quarter.
Ooh, okay.
Interesting little factoid.
Yeah.
Last night, obviously.
Do you think Tom Hammond likes that interesting little factoid?
I'm certain he did.
It's driving him bananas.
After last night, you can make it 4 of 5. Here's what happened. Alabama's defense held. Their offense got a boost from Najee Harris, a top recruit from a year ago. The third running back on their depth chart, also a freshman, big freshman presence in this football game. He actually ended up leading the team in rushing yards by the time all was said and done. This whole game, really, what an incredible case for building depth. I know we talked about it at the top of the show, but I was trying to think in my mind, like, what is the best way that I can describe this? And the one thing that kept coming to mind, maybe because it's cold here, but you know the scene in Dumb and Dumber when Jim Carrey reveals that he's got a second pair of gloves hidden?
Yes, of course.
That's how I feel about Alabama's depth at this point. They have so many weapons, Dan.
You had another 5-star this whole time?
Exactly.
And then, obviously, a suitcase full of money. There's the association that you can draw, Ty. You can draw that. No, and the fact that Najee Harris does my favorite underrated running back thing, that is the greatest thing to see if it's your running back and the worst possible thing to see if it's an opposing running back, where, he's going to get tripped up for 4 yards. He just stumbled for like 9 more.
Yeah.
What the hell? That incredible balance. And, we've talked to people about like what separates a 3-star, 6-foot, 215 pound running back from a 5-star. I'd say it's balance, especially you watch Sony Michel tiptoe down the sideline in the first half. You watch Najee Harris just completely dominate in just sort of weaving through an unbelievable Georgia defense in the fourth quarter. Fresh 5-star running back legs for Alabama in the fourth quarter. And it's maddening. It's maddening if you're a Georgia fan to see you get contact early, but it doesn't fully matter. And on the other side, Ty, and I know this is something you noticed too, is it looked like Sony Michel was going to put this game away.
Oh, yeah.
It very much did. He started running with an incredible amount of steam, and then he didn't touch the ball, and hopefully there's a good reason for that he is hurt. We hope he is not hurt, but hopefully there is something behind that we are not fully aware of at the time of this recording, because it really seemed like they were going to do the Alabama thing and just slowly push Bama away from the line of scrimmage with the running game, but it just sort of disappeared.
The combination of Tua with Najee Harris, and then eventually Calvin Ridley, who wasn't involved much until late. That's sort of what got Bama in the position to win. Tua hits Calvin Ridley in the middle of the end zone, about 3 minutes left, to tie it at 20-all.
Did you think he was trying to throw it to Calvin Ridley, or just like, well, there's a bunch of white jerseys around there?
It might have been a little bit of both.
I'm not convinced that he was like, this is where Calvin Ridley is going to pop out of a giant mass of huge humans.
It was definitely not see receiver, hit receiver. He just sort of threw it to a spot.
Yes.
Nonetheless, he does hit Calvin Ridley. They omit the false start at the bottom of the field, and they give Alabama a 20-20 tie ball game. Alabama had another shot to win this game.
They did.
What did you think of that kick?
That kicker has been good for Alabama all season long. For the most part, he has been dependable, has had a good leg, and early on, when he slipped when planting and missed that kick by a wide margin, it's like, ooh, this guy's going to be in his head a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But Alabama kicks, the field goal near I think, sort of the middle of the third quarter. I was like, all right, confidence is probably back. And he steps up, and how long was the field goal attempt?
I don't remember. It was
like
long,
36. Though. It was in the 30s. It was not particularly long. And they center it for him, and to slip with his plant foot again and to send it wide, I believe it was wide left again.
Yeah.
That's, neither one of us is, we don't care who wins this game. We just want a good game. We want people to be healthy and fun and whatever. And for that to happen, it just oh, is that brutal if Alabama loses because of that eventually. And it's hard to muster a ton of sympathy for Alabama and, heartbroken fans. But for that specific kicker, Papa Natsos or whatever, that is you can't have that. That sucks.
There's wide left and woefully left.
Yes.
And this was more of the woeful variety. Mm-hmm. Thankfully, it's not something that he'll have to live with the rest of his life because, well, we'll talk about overtime now. But
right.
In overtime, Georgia gets the ball first. 2 runs, 4 yards. Then Jake Fromm takes a bad sack. And that's when they turn the reins over to our boy Rodrigo Blankenship.
Yeah.
And his stylish goggles. He has been automatic.
Oh, my God.
For most of the year, certainly this postseason, hit a long field goal. I think a 51-yarder in the Rose Bowl a week ago. Another 51-yarder in overtime from the right hash to give Georgia a 23-20 lead. Not to be outdone, Dan. Bama takes back over. Tua takes a bad sack of his own all the way back at the 41-yard line.
The freshman quarterback moments in overtime were spectacular.
All the way back at the 41-yard line. Nick Saban's doing the arm thing. What the hell you doing?
Yes.
Seems like it's going to be a major turning point in favor of the Georgia Bulldogs.
They cut to Jalen Hurts on the sideline saying, interesting, taking a huge sack in overtime. Huh.
On the very next play, he finds another freshman, Devontae Smith, on a 41-yard streak right down the left side to win it 26-23. I thought the broadcast did a good job explaining what was going on, but in layman's terms, Georgia was in a cover 2, which means that safety in the back was supposed to drift to that side of the field. He was supposed to cover Smith on the deep ball if he ran it, and he just got a little bit too far to the middle of the field, which gave Smith enough time to break the initial coverage on the left side, streak down the field, Tua hit him in stride for a touchdown. And there you have it. The rest is history. 26-23, an incredible way to close out the college football season. An absolute stomach punch if you're a Georgia fan. Like a level 27 stomach punch if you're a Georgia fan.
Oh, my God. First of all, the confidence to throw that ball. And this was, again, Alabama winning the game with a true freshman with a 4 verts look. A 3-by-1, trips on the right, a streaking Devontae Smith on the left side. And here's word for word. Here's the quote from Tua. They had split safeties, the safety on Devontae's side, the single receiver side. He tried to disguise his coverage. I tried to look him off, but he stayed in the middle. Then I went back outside. It was cover 2 on their side. They stayed on the inside, so I took a shot downfield, and he caught it. That sort of, and if you watch the throw, it's not him dancing around. It's not him sort of buying himself time and chucking it deep. It is Tua taking the ball, rocking back, looking to his right, trying to get a defense to shift, the coverage to shift, coming back to his left as he's stepping in and throwing the ball from like the 48 to the 3 on the coldest of frozen ropes to a streaking Devontae Smith. It was... If you didn't like that play or Jake Fromm's throw to McCole Hardman, I believe early on in the third quarter, you just don't like football. This is the wrong sport for you because it was the top level of beauty that we can get to offensively, especially in the passing game. And for Tua to have that type of composure, again, coming in unexpectedly in the second half and going to overtime, taking a bad sack and just launching it deep, my God.
Yeah.
My God. Especially down 3 and needing to get into field goal range at the very least and throwing it deep like that. That's just, it's stupid, Ty. It's stupidity that Alabama has the ability to sort of go to, what is it in hockey where you go to like the next group of the shift change or whatever.
The line change?
The line change. That Alabama just had a 5-star line change. And this also includes a left tackle, a true freshman left tackle in Alex Leatherwood. Leatherwood? That sounds like his name, who came in for Jonah Williams, who went down sort of in the middle of this game. So true freshman, protected by true freshman, succeeding, handing it off to a true freshman in the fourth quarter, and ultimately finding a true freshman streaking down the left side of the field to win the national championship, all unexpectedly going into the game. It's just, if it happened to anybody else, it would be a little bit more magnificent. But even with it happening for Bama, you have to tip your hat to like the unlikely nature of all of those events.
Really just an incredible way to close out the season. So congratulations to Alabama. We had the good fortune of meeting bunch of Alabama fans down at our live show at All Points in Atlanta. A lot of fun to interact with them and see their excitement for this game. And Lord knows it's not going to go away anytime soon. A big one for Nick Saban. He wins his 6th national championship, which is obviously quite historic in its own right. But Saban was about as excited as I think I've seen him post any game. He actually seemed to have some genuine degree of happiness upon winning this football game.
Yes, he absolutely did. And I think he actually said, this is the happiest I've ever been in my life.
Yeah, right.
Like, whoa, just say football thing. Just say football thing. You're married with kids. Be cool. But you know what? I can't hate on that pure honesty and emotion in that moment, because I can't imagine what it feels like. And I mean, this is what? 3rd national championship appearance in a row. They've always been in the playoff, and 2nd national championship in 3 years. So, man, it's not that we should go over the top and saying, who could have ever imagined Alabama winning another national championship? But the way that they did it was certainly new and novel.
Well, thank you to everyone out there who played along with us this season.
Yeah.
Your final score one more time, 26-23. In overtime, your national champion is the Alabama Crimson Tide. Before we tell you about our plans now moving forward as we forge ahead into the offseason, I'm going to tell you right now that after this podcast is over, I'm going to go lay down on my Casper.
Oh, good
which
call.
is a sleep brand that continues to revolutionize its line of products to create an exceptionally comfortable sleep experience one night at a time. I've got one. I've never needed it more than I do right now, because if you can't tell from my voice, I'm a little under the weather. And whenever I sleep in my Casper, it makes me feel a little bit better. People at the live show are asking, is that real? Do you really have a Casper? Yes, we really have Caspers. We really enjoy them. Casper has 3 mattress models. They have the original, the Wave, and the Essential. Their mattresses are perfectly designed to soothe and cradle your natural geometry, Dan.
Ooh, love natural geom.
Not to mention the breathable design. It helps you sleep cool. It regulates your body temperature all throughout the night. And it's delivered to you right to your door in a small, how did they do that size box. Free shipping and returns in the U.S. and Canada. But the best part is that you can be sure of your purchase with their 100-night risk-free trial. So you get it, sleep on it, see if you like it. If you don't, you can send it back. You spend 1/3 of your life sleeping, so you should, at the bare minimum, be comfortable while you are doing it, Dan. We've talked about our personal experiences with the Casper time and time again. We'd recommend it to anybody. I have recommended it to all sorts of folks. The experience right from the unboxing through the setup, through the sleep quality is A1. I think we're both of one mind when it comes to that.
Yes, sir.
We would encourage verballers out there to start sleeping ahead of the curve with our friends over at Casper. You can get $50 towards select mattresses by visiting casper.com/verbal. And then when it asks you for a code, just use verbal again at checkout. So casper.com/verbal, offer code verbal. You will get $50 off your mattress purchase. Terms and conditions do apply.
So here, ready for a segue, Ty, that I've been working on. I've been massaging real nicely.
Please, I'm dying
Casper
here.
Read. Since Casper does such a good job bringing you from today to tomorrow, should we look forward at what Alabama and Georgia perhaps lose and gain? Not necessarily gain. We'll talk recruiting when that sort of all finishes up in the beginning of February, but what these teams might look like in 2018, just in terms of who's playing quarterback, who do they lose? Alabama loses a ton. So no Robert Foster. We assume Calvin Ridley will go to the NFL.
I would think so, yeah.
Up front, they lose what looks like at least 1 or 2 offensive linemen. And I think they have defensively Deron Payne. We'll see what happens with his future. Deshaun Hand is a senior. Rashaan Evans, ridiculous linebacker. He's a senior. Levi Wallace, Minka Fitzpatrick, Anthony Averett, Tony Brown. So they lose a lot of star power. We say this every year. It doesn't necessarily affect how the season ends up, but this will be a very different looking Bama team. This is not a team led by, redshirt freshmen and sophomores that are getting all of this done. So there's a ton of upperclassmen, Damian Harris and Bo Scarborough. I don't know how much more they have to prove as running backs at Alabama. I would expect them, unless they, are extremely happy in Tuscaloosa and want to keep playing for an excellent football team, I would expect them to at least figure out if they should be going to the NFL, especially at that position. And now that Tua Tagovailoa is now Cardale Jones, what will Jalen Hurts do in a sort of very mobile quarterback transfer economy?
We'll see.
I don't know what Bama's quarterback depth looks like behind those two, but if Tua is now in a position to grow from winning a national championship and become an even more accurate, confident passer, I don't know where that leaves the quarterback room in Tuscaloosa. I really don't. So that's what Alabama looks like. And Georgia loses a ton of talented seniors. I think they lose something like 30 seniors from this class. This was always going to be the year when you looked at the depth chart. But yeah, Terry Godwin's a junior. We'll see what happens with him. Jake Fromm is obviously going to be around for a while. Sony Michel and Nick Chubb are going to be gone, but they've recruited running back really well. Big John Atkins is a senior in the middle of that defense. Lorenzo Carter, who obviously had a huge play in the Rose Bowl and played very well against Alabama last night. Davin Bellamy. We expect Roquan Smith as a junior to at least figure out what his value is, perhaps at the next level. The secondary is filled with upperclassmen. So these two teams have recruited so well and have rotated in enough guys to build reps throughout the season, blowing teams out that I'm positive they're going to be very, very good next year. But both will look exceedingly different. Yeah.
Well, Daniel, on that note, again, 26-23 your final. Congratulations to Bama fans. Congratulations to Bama. And hey, congratulations to Georgia fans as well. That was a good game. Georgia very much deserved to be on the field with Bama.
Great season.
Great season. Damn near won the game. Can't ask for a better way to close out the year. Obviously, I'm sure Dog fans wish it went a little bit differently, but for the rest of us who didn't necessarily have a dog in the fight, so to speak, it was a good way to close it out. A fun Monday night to watch some college football one last time. In regards to the podcast, we are going to take...
Let's talk about us.
Yeah, a little bit of time off now, and it doesn't mean we won't be putting shows out, but it does mean that we're going to alter the schedule a little bit. So you can look for one show a week from this point forward, all through the off season. Once we get closer to the 2018 season, we will resume our normal 2 weeks. But for a while now, we're going to go once a week. We've got all sorts of fun stuff planned for the year ahead, starting, of course, with the live show we did in Atlanta. So
yes,
if you weren't able to actually come on out to that show, you can listen to it next Wednesday when we'll publish the audio. I went through it yesterday. After that point, we'll keep everyone updated. We've obviously got recruiting, and then before you know it, it's spring football and some other creative projects that you and I are inevitably going to work on now over the course of the next couple months. But if you are a college football fan, and if you like the cut of our jib, please do keep it here, keep subscribing, keep downloading, and we'll do our best to get you through the long, cold doldrums that are college football's offseason.
And we should mention with the live show, that is not with the Q&A, correct? That's only for the people that attended.
The Q&A was a bonus to people who actually paid the money and were able to show up.
Yes, that is only for the people that showed up, and I believe the aerial photos will justify it. The most attended Solid Verbal live show we've ever done. It was our coronation. Now, we had a fantastic time at the live show, and I will add, because we are doing one show a week for the off season, and you did say 2 a week, and now I really want to do a Tua Tagovailoa a week somehow, talking to Hawaiian people who know him and just deep diving Tua. But there will be bonus Q&As. You know, sometimes there'll be a couple episodes a week. Sometimes it might be a video on our Facebook page that we'll have some fun with and experiment with some sort of new media kind of stuff. So even though it's once a week, those will be long, action-packed shows. We will do theme weeks, theme months, whatever the case may be throughout the off season. We will talk to people far smarter than we are, which there's just so many of them. So we have so many of them to talk to over the course of the off season. But yeah, we will be doing a ton. We'll be ramping up all sorts of various new avenues. So extremely excited for us to deep dive a bunch of stuff, to get weird in the off season. Some people prefer the off season to the season because that's when we can't be wrong about games and predictions. We just can't be. Although I would argue that's our charm, that we are always wrong. So that it's an exciting time for us personally, because this is when we really like to stretch our deep diving and weird college football muscles. I bring it back to the muscle reference because that's just what I do. But please join us. Let's have some fun for these next few months, because there is still going to be a ton to talk about. We have recruiting at the beginning of February with the end of the signing day period and various, goings on. There's still probably, Arizona doesn't have a coach. So there's still going to be coaching movements that, are perhaps unexpected that we've seen throughout. We've got spring football, all sorts of stuff to do. So very excited for the months that lay ahead, Ty.
And last but not least, there will be another live show later in the year.
Yes! And it's a new city that we're going to be doing it in.
It will be in a different city. We have not settled on which city, but we have a number of really strong options. Mm-hmm. And if you're interested in showing up to a live show, we've got people from Atlanta who basically swore a blood oath to fly to wherever our next show is. They enjoyed it so much.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So
and there are flights into the Allentown airport, right?
What's that?
There, you can fly straight into Allentown.
That's right.
See our next. Right. Ooh, did I give it away?
We're going to do it at Terminal B.
Which coincidentally is also Terminals A.
It's also Terminal A. Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
So anyway, thank you, after that long-winded description of where we're headed, for bearing with us here all throughout the college football season. We will be back next week. Alabama, your 2017-18 college football playoff national champions. For that guy over there, Dan Rubenstein, for myself, Ty Hildenbrand over here in Allentown, thanks again for tuning in, and stay solid.
Peace. All right, Ty, little bonus. If you're still listening to the show after it actually ended, I'm going to give you the first half of Alabama and the second half of Georgia in my dramatic drive chart voice. Missed field goal, punt, 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 touchdown, interception, punt, 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 field goal, end of game.